you will find a lot of closed doors when you're an immigrant. Behind those doors, there are opportunities, there's success. How do you open them? Language is the first key. My name is Khadija, a linguist immigrant in Sweden, and I'm here to help you learn Swedish and integrate yourself into the Swedish society. Welcome to Module 2. This module is divided into 4 steps: negation, yes-no questions, question words, and lastly, personal questions and answers. As a result, you will be able to not only communicate information about yourself, but also ask others about themselves. We start with negation. In simple words, we learn how to turn I live in Sweden into I do not live in Sweden. In Swedish, we use the word inte for negation, and pay attention, it usually stands after the verb in a Swedish statement. For example, jag bor i Sverige becomes jag bor inte i Sverige. And as you can see, inte is standing after the verb. Now let's go ahead and negate all 10 statements that we learned in Module 1. Jag är inte lärare. Du har inte en väska. Jag läser inte en bok. Jag äter inte frukost. Du dricker inte vatten. Han jobbar inte på posten. Vi studerar inte på universitetet. Ni går inte på teater. Hon bor inte i Stockholm. De kommer inte från Sverige. If you follow me on Patreon and you have practiced the 10 extra verbs and objects that we learned there, you can go ahead and negate statements that we built around those verbs and objects in order to practice negation a little more. Remember, you put inte after the verb and you have a negative Swedish statement. It's easy as that. On this step, we learn how to formulate questions, and namely questions that ask for yes or no as an answer. Let's have a look at the English example first, and then we will see how it translates into Swedish. He is a student. Is he a student? Yes or no? Is he a student is a yes-no question because it asks for yes or no as an answer. Now let us translate it into Swedish and let's see what happens. Han är student. This is a statement because it ends with a full stop. And I hope you remember, in a statement, verb always stands the second. Now, in order to turn this statement into a question, you simply put the verb first and let the rest follow unchanged. Är han student? Ja eller nej as an answer. Let's see another example. Han jobbar på posten. This is a statement and the verb occupies the second place. To turn it into a question, we simply move the verb to the very beginning of the sentence and let the rest follow unchanged. Jobbar hon på posten? Now that we know how to formulate yes-no questions, it is time to move on to question words. Vem, who, vad, what, var, where, vart, where to, varifrån, where from, hur, how, hur gammal, how old, när, when, hur dags, what time, varför, why, vilken, which, vilket, also which, vilka, also which. The difference between vilken, vilket, and vilka comes down to the difference in number and articles. If you have a noun that is in singular, then you will be choosing between vilken and vilket. If it's an n noun, then you choose vilken. If it's an ett noun, you choose vilket. But if you have plural, you forget about vilken and vilket and you go directly to vilka. For example, väska is an en noun, en väska. If you want to ask which bag, then you say vilken väska. Bord is an ett noun. So if you want to ask which table, you say vilket bord. And lastly, studenter is a plural form meaning students. And to ask which students, you would say vilka studenter. Now let us apply these question words to some of our statements. Han jobbar på posten. Imagine we didn't know where he worked. Then we would ask, where does he work? Var jobbar han? Let's break this down. We start the question with a question word, var. Then we follow the rule that applies to questions in general and that we apply to yes-no questions on step 2. That is, first we put the verb, then the subject, and then the object if you have any. So we end up having var jobbar han. We don't have an object in this question. Du dricker vatten. If we don't know who's drinking water, we ask vem dricker vatten? Du dricker vatten. If we don't know what you're drinking, we ask vad dricker du? Du dricker vatten. Han studerar svenska på universitetet. He studies Swedish at university. Vem studerar svenska på universitetet? Han studerar svenska på universitetet. Vad studerar han på universitetet? Han studerar svenska på universitetet. Var studerar han svenska? Han studerar svenska på universitetet. You can even ask, vad gör han på universitetet? What does he do at the university? Han studerar svenska på universitetet. He studies Swedish at university. To summarize, the word order in statements applies as follows. Subject, verb, object, place. In questions, on the other hand, the following word order applies. If it's a yes-no question, it starts directly with a verb. So you have verb, subject, object, and place. But if it's a question that uses question words like var, vad, and so on, and asks for more information in reply than just yes and no, then you have question word followed by verb, subject, object, and place. Until this point, we have been able to communicate information about ourselves, but now we are able to ask people questions about themselves as well. On this step, it's time to formulate basic personal questions and answers and participate in a simple dialogue. Hej! Vad heter du? Jag heter Katja. Vad har du för efternamn? Mitt efternamn är Chikladze. Varifrån kommer du? Jag kommer från Georgien. Var bor du? Jag bor i Malmö. Vad jobbar du med? Jag jobbar som assistentredaktör och skribent. Vad gör du på fritiden? Jag hjälper nyanlända invandrare att lära sig svenska. När flyttade du till Sverige? År 2016. Varför flyttade du till Sverige? För att jag är gift med en svensk. Hur dags börjar du jobba? Jag börjar jobba klockan 8. Vilken färg är din favorit? Min favoritfärg är grön. You can build lots of different kinds of questions now, not limited to the ones that I used. So try doing that as an exercise and answer the questions about yourself. Then go ahead and practice with a friend. For more extensive practice, follow my Patreon page. and gain access to not only exercises tied to this module, but also extra grammatical exercises. And that's not even all. You will also gain access to video lessons on what I call situational learning, where we place ourselves in a certain situation and learn all kinds of phrases around it, all in Swedish. I'll see you on Patreon and in Module 3 next week.